Imagine a new kind of investing, a potentially life-changing way to invest that honors biblical principles, the kind of principles that you and I grew up with. Since 1994, Timothy Plan has made biblically responsible investing possible, offering mutual funds and ETFs that are filtered for biblical principles. Don't compromise your values. Invest with Timothy Plan. Ask your financial advisor or call Timothy Plan at 1-800-TIM-PLAN. Again, that's 1-800-846-7526 and discover what it means to be a biblically responsible investor. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal. Before investing, carefully consider a fund's investment objective, risks, charges, and expenses contained in the prospectus available at timothyplan.com. Read carefully before investing. Mutual funds distributed by Timothy Partners Ltd. and ETFs distributed by Foreside Fund Services LLC. As a paid testimonial, there is no guarantee of future performance and each experience will differ. Hey there, welcome to another edition of the Memo Pod. It is great to see so many of you with us. It is also great how many of you were free subscribers and are today going to get the full thing because you have given us a shot and become a paid subscriber. Just $8 a month if you sign up, or you can pay $80 for the whole year currently. That's the going price right now. We've kept some of our special pricing in place, largely because I've forgotten to change it. Anyway, so you can still get in on that until I remember to change the cost. But okay, so all of that to say, those of you that are paying subscribers, you're supporting the ministry in that way. We're going to cover a lot of stuff today, and you're going to be privy to all of it. Those of you who are free subscribers, you're going to get in on this. I want to start with the Disney stuff that's happening with Disney. But later on, I don't know if you saw the clip of Donald Trump doing a town hall meeting, and he was asked the question how his faith has grown. It was a Christian lady. You could tell this is a Christian lady who had bought into what she had been told in 2016 and 2020, that Donald Trump was a baby Christian, which is the way Trump never referred to himself that way, but significant, popular, leading Christian figures had described him thusly, in an effort to convince evangelicals to vote for him. Not just evangelicals, Christians to vote for him. And so he was asked by someone who clearly believed that that's what he was at one point, a baby Christian. So how has your faith developed, baby Christian? And his answer, man, you got to hear it. And I'll share it with you, and then we'll talk a little bit about it and what it means, not even from a faith perspective, what it means from a political perspective and Trump's strategy in this primary. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then also, if I can get to it, I am convinced that there is no country on the face of the earth that hates itself like the United States. The self-loathing in this country, I believe, is unlike anything. You will find greater senses of pride, national pride, in places that have no reason to exhibit national pride. They're not landing on the moon. They're not, their crime rate is worse. I mean, it's just, but they will be proud of their country. And here, it's almost, there's a lot of people that are embarrassed to show any sort of pride or acknowledgement of the greatness of their country in the United States. Just very weird phenomenon. So I want to talk about that in the second half and kind of prove my point in all of that. That comes up on the flip side, on the other side of our break. But I want to start with this Disney stuff because the question that I think any sane person would have is, why are they doing what they're doing? I honestly believe that's got to be the question. This self-destructive cycle that Disney seems to be on. I mean, you can read all the stories about the box office disasters that they continue to have. And they're sinking all of this money into Disney Plus. Is that what it's called? Disney Plus, the streaming service. And it's losing subscribers left and right. And then the parks, several reports that they're as empty as they've ever been in the summer months. And a lot of people are attributing that to Disney's go woke strategy. And again, because the word woke is so overused, Disney has become synonymous with the LGBT movement. Okay, they have tied themselves inextricably with the LGBT movement and other woke philosophies as well the racial identitarian politics, all of that stuff. These, several of you know, Disney's doing all of these live action remakes of their old animated classics. They did it with The Little Mermaid, they did it with others. Did they have Beauty and the Beast? I think maybe. I don't know. I haven't watched any of them, but they've made them. And they're doing one now, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Okay? If you've seen into the images that come from this, it's made Disney a laughingstock. Because it's like the multi-ethnic diversity of the Seven Dwarfs is insane. Like they have tried to find anybody and everybody that isn't a little white dude. That's what they were out to accomplish. And it is so patently obvious that this is racial political correctness run amok that it's comical. And the lady that they have playing Snow White is not white. Because again, racial diversity is the most important thing in all of that. And frankly, I don't really care what they do with the cartoon, but some people do. But everybody is kind of asking the question, anybody that cares about this stuff culturally, why are they doing it? Because they see the disaster. Let me play this clip from an interview that you see with the star of the one that's playing Snow White, and then Gal Gadot is the evil queen. I can't think of, I don't know if I've got it written down here or not. The lady's name that's playing Snow White. I don't have it written down. I don't see it. Anyway, sorry, I don't have her name. I'm not trying to rip her off her notoriety for this, but I didn't write it down. But here's the interview that's being done with those two individuals. Just watch this and, well, be in amazement with me.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be, and the leader that her late father told her that she could be if she was fearless, fair, brave, and true. And so it's just a really incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in.
Snow White is running for president.
I'm launching my campaign. Yeah.
Okay, I've said before, and I'm going to say again, it's that kind of stuff that actually makes me a little worried for the future of our friends over at the Babylon Bee, the Christian satire site. I get a little concerned for their abilities to sustain a future when I'm watching that actually unfold on the news, because those are actual interviews. Those are real life people, real life interviews. They're serious interviews, and they're almost identical to a script that the B-boys and girls would write. I mean, it really is. That's what they would try to put together. The B is in their attempt to show the absurdity of progressives' obsession with wokeness and identity politics and all of that. They would write a script about Snow White who isn't white, and the seven multi-ethnic, multiracial little people. That's what they would do if they were trying to parody the insanity of the left. But now there is this sector of progressivism that is itself a parody of itself. You can't parody that. Which, since I write for Not the Bee, I guess that's kind of job security for us a little bit, even if it's bad for the Babylon Bee. I don't know. But anyway, so the $64 million question, why are they doing it? And here's why I think that that's a legitimate question. I don't care how strong your echo chamber is. Meaning, Disney, I'm sure, is very insular. The boardroom, the corporate room where Bob Iger is back in charge, and he's got all of the executives in there, and they're super proud of how many women they've hired and how many minorities they've hired into all of these positions. I know that they are all most likely on board with all of the wokeness and everything. They have an echo chamber. They all pat each other on the back for their extraordinary virtue. I truly believe that that's what's going on, okay? I'm not saying that it's not. But no matter how impenetrable, no matter how insular your echo chamber is, there's no way that at least someone on that board, in that boardroom, is aware of how all of this stuff is playing with the general population. I don't care how many yes men are in the ears. They know. They have to know. At least some of them, they have to know because they see the box office numbers because they have to talk about them. What are we going to do? They peruse social media, so they see what's trending. They know what's being laughed at and what's being discussed. They notice the dropping attendance in the parks. They have to because that's their job. So even if they want to convince themselves this is what they should be doing and they're great people for doing it, they know all this. There's somebody there, and I personally believe it's more than just a somebody that, in fact, I think it could even be a majority who have raised notice of all of this, that have pointed out the core demographic of this company, which is families. Maybe they've reached a tolerance tipping point where they have been told, and all of this stuff has been pushed on them, and the families are like, okay, we don't like it, but we're going to keep doing it. We don't like this, but we're still going to make memories with our family. We're going to go to the parks. We don't like this stuff, but we'll go and see the movies that aren't just a bunch of woke lectures. We'll still do that. We'll get Disney Plus and we'll watch some of the classics that are on there. We'll still do that. But now those families maybe have reached the tolerance tipping point where they're not going to tolerate it anymore and they're just going to say we have better options. And so that's what we're going to do. It's not that we're trying to boycott Disney. There's just nothing that Disney is putting out anymore that we want to associate with or we really find enjoyable. And even the parks. We don't want to go and have in every gift shop 50% of the material that's for sale, and I'm exaggerating, but 50% of the merchandise be from the Pride collection. We don't want to see that. That's not catering to us or our interests, and there are other places that will. But if they know this, which they have to know this, or they at least have to consider it, I come back to the original question. Why are they continuing? Why don't they course correct then? There is a conservative preacher, and I don't know him. His name is Michael Clary. And on Twitter, you get like the people that you're following. You can look at that column, or then you can get the ones over here that are recommended for you based on your likes and other people that you follow. It'll recommend based on its algorithm. And I'm pretty sure that that's how I came across this. Michael Clary offered what he considered his best guess as to why Disney was continuing down this path. I honestly believe after reading it, it's the most thorough and thoughtful and reasonable explanation I've heard to answer my question, why are they continuing to do it? And his answer was pretty simply, they can't help themselves. That's the issue. They can't. In fact, this is what he put. It is clear at this point that Disney has dug themselves a hole they can't get out of. They dug themselves the hole, likely knew they were digging it while they were digging it, but they didn't feel they had any other option, so they dug it, and now even if they want to get out of it, they're too far in. They can't. Clary references the video that I showed you and says, this young actress says, quote, "It is no longer 1937. Snow White's not going to be saved by the prince. She's not going to be dreaming about true love." And Clary points out, yeah, good, because 1937, those rubes back there, we know a lot better than they do, and we're better than them, and who needs a man to save them anymore? And really what girls hate, they hate the idea of falling in love. This isn't 1937. They don't want to fall in love. They don't have any desire to be a princess saved by a prince. That's just gross. That's stupid. They want to be the chairman of the board. That's what women want. That's what girls want today. And the actress says, she, Snow White, is dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be. Right, because that's what little girls dream about. They don't dream about true love's first kiss or true first love's kiss. I think I said it right the first time. No, they don't think about that. They think about, I would like to chair my own organization and my own meeting. I really would. I think that'd be great. It's the dream of every little girl. By the way, it may be the dream for some strange little girl that maybe has seen that modeled or thinks that'd be really cool. Great. But can we not play this game where we consider it somehow bad or outdated that a girl would want to be saved by a prince? That's a fun little story for them, but that's where Disney is in all of this. And here's what Clary writes. Referencing back to this interview with this actress and this nonsense that Snow White is becoming, Disney has to know this message won't sell. That's what I was saying. They have to know. But they can't turn back now. In some ways, they're still benefiting from the trust that they'd accumulated back when they cared about the audiences and they made decent films. But that time is running out. Disney Corp is beclowning itself, he writes, with this kind of propaganda. They're a joke. Their credibility with their target audience isn't any better than Bud Light. They're a progressive propaganda machine, and every family knows it. Which is what I was referencing earlier when I said maybe the tolerance tipping point. Every family knows it, and they're just, excuse me, they're just done with it. They don't want to have to deal with it. It's not... Maybe I shouldn't say they don't want to have to deal with it. It's just not worth it anymore. What they're getting from Disney is no longer worth it to put up with all the other stuff. That's what I mean by the tipping point. But Disney can't stop doing it. That's what Clary writes. They can't stop it. Their brand identity requires them to continue creating soulless garbage to stay in the good graces of the LGBTQ activists who are now running the show. And that's very true. Disney has ceded control of its organizational and operational operations. That's why you subscribe. That kind of articulation. They're operational operations. Anyway, by the way, I regret for those of you that aren't watching this episode, the little eyebrow raise that goes along with it and nod. That makes it all the better. But anyway, families, Clary writes, are not buying it. Disney was once associated with wholesome family entertainment, but now not so much. You can't continue to undermine the core values of your target audience and expect people to keep shelling out cash for it. What parents want to take their kids to a special day at the movies, shell out their hard-earned cash to sit in a theater, getting lectured at by a self-righteous, preachy screenplay that revels in undermining the values you're trying to instill in your children? Bingo. I'll tell you right now, because when we had, like on the streaming service, when the kids are watching some of the old Disney stuff, some of the old Disney shows, and they will do their Disney ads, or I'm watching a football game on television, or whatever it might be, and an ad comes on for one of the new Disney movies that they're making, like Elemental, I think is the most recent. I think they got a non-binary figure in that. And our youngest sees it, and Grayson sees it, and he's like, oh, we should see that movie. No way. No. I mean, he can say that, and I'm not going to look right at him and say, no, we're not going to that. But we're not going to go to that. I'm not going to pay money to then have to explain what in the world non-binary is. That's what I'm saying. It's the tipping point. It's not worth it anymore. It's an odd thing to try to request your target demographic that they continue supporting you against their best interest. As you war against their values, you want them to continue to fund you as you war against them. It's a hard sell. It really is. And if you're going to be successful in it, you at least have to give them some kind of a product that makes the trade-off worth it to them. And Disney has completely ceased doing that. The Disney worldview, Clary writes, is one that would deprive parents of grandchildren in the future because it tells little girls that the good life is to be girl bossing in some corporate boardroom, not falling in love, getting married, and building a loving family together. Yuck, that's 1937. That's patriarchy. But, and this is what I thought was maybe the best part of what Clary wrote, since Disney has run out of new ideas, they are cannibalizing the vault by modernizing the old, embarrassing film classics, all but ensuring they're going to erase whatever decent legacy they might have otherwise had. You see, that right there, I think, is the part that's kind of being downplayed right now, that may be the biggest part of this whole Disney self-destruction story. Clary thinks they're committing suicide and says the sooner the better. Okay, first of all, I wholeheartedly agree with Michael Clary that Disney has shot its credibility in the foot. I think there are people, and I may be one of those people, that still loves Disney's parks. We love the food, we love the rides, we like the overall experience. Although it's not for everybody, I understand that. But part of it is nostalgia for us, and part of it is the rooms are really nice. The hotels have kind of spoiled us on others. And other people say, no, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. The value, it's not worth it. And that's fine. But what I'm saying is, people may still love that stuff. They may still love the vault of Disney classics. My wife and I, the other day, watched it was like out in 1986. That's just crazy that how long ago that is now. But Flight of the Navigator, I don't know if you remember Flight of the Navigator or not, if that movie makes any sense to you whatsoever. Sarah Jessica Parker, the actress, was in it. She was super young at the time. I think she was the only big name actor or actress that was in it. But anyway, or she would go on and become a big name. But we watched that. It was great. Sometimes I'll turn on Blackbeard's Ghost, the old Dean Martin movie. It was great. Or not Dean Martin, Dean Jones. It was great. And so people still love that. And people, I think, still have good, fond memories of Walt's old nature programs. And they have an appreciation for what Walt Disney did. I mean, that is thoroughly American risk-taking to do what he did in building Disney World and all of that. But I'm telling you, even those people, and I lump myself in that category, that's why I can say this with authority, when they hear the name Disney these days, that we are far more likely to think gay activism than we are Blackbeard's Ghost, or The Monkey's Uncle, or The Misadventures of Merlin Jones, or The Many Adventures of Winnie the Pooh. I mean, all of this stuff from the classic years. I don't think about that. When I hear the name Disney now, I'm like, well, what is the latest gay stuff that they've been pushing? What is the latest LGBTQ? So what, again, even if you are a fan of that stuff, I'm not saying that as a pejorative. I'm saying that is what Disney has become associated with. So that's what they've chosen to do, and that's what their name is now associated with. And the point Clary is making, and this is the point that I would make out of that, is Disney has to know that that isn't sustainable. You can't sustain that. So in one sense, they are beholden to it, and they've turned their organization over to it, and that has become their identity. But at the same time, they have to know it's not sustainable. Yes, a large sector of young people today are embracing the social fad of alternative genders and alternative sexualities more than ever. But it is, even those numbers, as absurd as they are, it's nowhere near enough to sustain the multi-billion-dollar bottom line of a company like Disney. If the Disney name becomes solely identified and associated with gay identity politics, there is not enough of a base there to keep Disney afloat, not with a multi-billion-dollar bottom line. You can make Disney into a niche company that dutifully caters to the queer agenda. You can do that. And that seems to be the path that Disney is going down, whether they want to or not. But it's not a feasible long-term corporate strategy if you want to sustain Disney at the size that it is. That said, I want you to notice the dilemma here. The dilemma emerges in that the vocal and active core of the company's leadership, their employee base, we're talking from parks to movies, the entertainment stuff, it is disproportionately LGBT obsessed. It is. Like, if you go to the parks and you see the folks that work there, it is disproportionate to the regular population. Okay? And if you look at the Disney boardroom and look at activist donations and PACs and things like that are supported, it is tremendously disproportionate compared to the normal population of LGBT obsessed activism. It's celebrated in every park. It is merchandised in every gift shop. It is promoted in every company press release. It is featured in every company movie nowadays. And if that doesn't continue to happen, the people in charge think it needs to happen with increasing regularity. That we've only made the first steps. We need to keep pushing this. The High School Musical, the series. That's actually the name of one of their programs on Disney. They want more characters that are queer, that are questioning, that are all of this stuff. And if Disney as a corporation decided not to do that, well, that whole community that has become the bread and butter of the company now, they'll see that as an attack on their dignity. And there'll be boycotts, there'll be outrage. Clary is also right in that the creative genius of Disney has been stunted. It's not there anymore. They used to call them Imagineers in the parks, and there are still Imagineers and all of that. But innovation, which used to be the hallmark of Disney, it has given way to political considerations and activism. So get how this happens. On the one hand, they cannot come up with any new ideas that are going to appeal to their core demographic of families. They don't have the innovation, they don't have the creativity anymore. It's gone. So they're not coming up with ideas that are going to appeal to their core demographic. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, they abuse their old material, they run it back, but they ruin the one remaining shred of their legacy that does appeal to their core demographic with stuff like this Snow White. They do. Or, well, we got to have a black Ariel, or we've got to have an Hispanic Merida, or whatever the princess may be. They're going to run back all the old material because they can't come up with new ideas that appeal to anybody. So they run back the old stuff that people do like, but they ruin it with their political activism. Now, do I think Disney's actually going to die? That would probably be where I differ with Clary. I don't think Disney's going to die, per se. But I think there will be a breaking point at time. There has to be. Where something more substantial than simply changing CEOs from one woke crusader to another. I mean, you go from Bob Chapek to Bob Iger. Bob Chapek was Bob Iger's original hand-picked successor. They're two peas in a pod. Iger's just going to do it the same thing Chapek was doing, just with a smile, as far as activism goes. It's a superficial, it's a cosmetic change, and nothing changed with the company. And it's not going to. At least not until that breaking point is reached, and I don't think they're there yet. Your thoughts welcome on any of this stuff. You can send it my way. Peter@peterheck.com. That is Peter@peterheck.com. Would love to hear from you. Would also love it, for those of you that I have to leave behind now, the free subscribers, I would love it if you would click that little button in the email and give us a shot. You can see the rest of this as we talk about, does any country in the world hate itself like America does? Also, I've got this clip of Trump responding to questions about his own faith and his spiritual advisors and all of that. All of that comes up on the other side of the break for our paying subscribers. Those of you who are going to remain free, it was great to have you with us so far. Glad you're with us. And if you ever want to give us a shot, don't hesitate. And those of you that have given us a shot, that are paid subscribers, stick with me. We'll be right back.
The Memo with Peter Heck.
Please patronize and thank all the sponsors of the Heck podcast, including McGonigal's Buick GMC, Terrell's Auto Service, Norris Insurance, Stevens Machine, Creative Financial Center, Indiana Right to Life, Tri-Green Tractor, the Indiana Family Institute, Hartman Family Farms, Liberty Financial Group, the Wyman Group, and J. Watson Creations.
Back on the Memo Pod. Great to have you with us. Look right there. I did it right this time, right there. You got creative financial design. We were talking in the first part of the Memo Pod today about Disney, and a lot of people get on people like me that are vacation club members and all that. You should not be spending your money there. I get it. I understand what they're saying. I truly do. It is part of being a good steward to try to use your money in ways that honor God. And a lot of people say you shouldn't spend it here. You shouldn't spend it at Southwest Airlines. You shouldn't spend it at American Airlines. You shouldn't spend it on Procter & Gamble products. You shouldn't spend it at Walmart or at Target. And the list goes on. You shouldn't spend a dime on the NFL or on NHL or Major League Baseball. Whatever it happens to be, which, by the way, I've always noticed, typically will point out things and take tough stances against those groups that we don't get any enjoyment out of. In other words, I hate Disney, so it's easy to say, you ought to boycott Disney. Or I hate football, and so I say, you should never watch another NFL game. Don't give them any attention. It's a little easier when it's not something you actually enjoy. Nonetheless, if all of that's true, that we ought to be good stewards, doesn't that apply to our retirement accounts? The money that we're investing in mutual funds to build a retirement portfolio? Some of you have started that. Some of you have been doing it for years. Have you thought about values-based investing? It's exactly what CFD does. I have my money going through CFD. They are doing values-based investing to diversify into companies. And by the way, the returns have been as good, in fact, better than what I was getting before I started the values-based investing, which makes sense that God would bless your desire to do that. They have advisors all over the country, CFD does. So wherever you're seeing this, check them out, Creative Financial Design, and you help me out when you do that, because you let them know that you're watching and you're supportive of this ministry, and also you're supportive of those who are supportive of this. You don't have to do anything with them, but contact them. Let them know that you appreciate their support, and maybe even see what they could do to help you out. Just consider it. All right, so we have talked, I think, before a little bit, the political side of things, that Donald Trump clearly has a strategy for 2024, at least the primary. And that strategy is make it appear as a fait accompli, that it's already done. The primary is already won, that Trump is going to be the nominee. And so this strategy of, I'm not going to participate in the debates. I'm going to stay above the fray, let all of these lesser candidates, the also-rans, let them tear themselves up in the debates. I will hold, at the same time that they're doing their debates, a synonymous rally somewhere, or I'll rally my people, or I'll do town hall meetings. Okay. So it is that strategy that led Trump to this town hall meeting that he did in Iowa that was not orchestrated, but it was moderated, if you want to use that term. I can't think of the one that I'm looking for, by Sean Hannity. Okay, where they would take questions from the crowd, which maybe they were preset questions. Judging by Trump's answer, I would like to think of what I'm going to show you. I would like to think that this wasn't a question he knew was coming. But I want you to watch this exchange that this lady has. This lady stands up and says to Donald Trump in Iowa, my question is, how has your faith grown since you decided in 2015 to run for president? And who has mentored you in your faith journey? All right. This isn't a question about economic policy. This isn't a question about foreign policy or domestic policy or social policy. It's a personal question. It is a fundamental question about Trump himself. That is as soft of a softball as you could ever imagine. You just be honest. Answer the question and be honest about yourself. That's what you have to do there. Now, as you watch this, because I'm going to play it for you, or as you listen to it, I want you to, and it's going to be harder to do, obviously, if you're just listening, but those of you that are watching this, I want you to take a moment and look at the woman who's asking the question, because I'll tell you who this lady is. I referenced it in the first half of the Memo Pod. During the 2016 election cycle and then the 2020 election cycle, you had a lot of key, high-profile Christian figures, like Dr. Dobson. I think he was the one that famously referred to Trump as a baby Christian. And basically, they were vouching for Donald Trump. Once he had the nomination, or as it was looking like he was going to get the nomination, there were Christians that wanted to support Trump, but they felt like that they shouldn't because he wasn't a Christian and because he didn't seem to have the character, that his qualities seemed to match up things that Scripture says these are qualities the Lord hates, and these are not godly qualities. And so many of these Christian leaders said, okay, yes, Trump is rough around the edges, but he is a baby Christian, so you have to be patient with him. I look at this woman asking the question, and she bought it. She believed that. She believed that Donald Trump was a baby Christian. Now, if you have ever been a baby Christian, and many of you watching this have been at one point in time a baby Christian, you will remember, especially if you were an adult baby Christian, how fired up you were in those when you convert to Christ. When he's like, you are on fire, and the excitement that is associated with those early days of your walk with Jesus, you can't get enough. It's all you want to do. And you know just enough about the faith to be dangerous. But it is an exhilarating process. You're trying to grow in your faith. And even as it settles in, it becomes slow and steady. You're excited about that. That's the life of a baby Christian. Her face, this woman tells me that she bought the Trump is a baby Christian explanation, and therefore she comes into this question very excited to see and to hear how Trump has grown and who he's learned from, and she wants to hear about his walk with Jesus. Here's how that exchange went down. Take a look at this.
My question is, how has your faith grown since you decided in 2015 to run for president, and who has mentored you in your faith journey?
Great question. It's such a great question. You know, I've seen so much heartache and turmoil. I was a developer and I did other things, and you know, I had a wonderful life before all this stuff. I didn't know what a grand jury was. I didn't know what a subpoena. What is a subpoena? I had a wonderful life. I'm so glad. They were asked me the other day a little different question. Are you glad you did it? You had a great life. Are you glad you did it? I couldn't be more glad. I am so happy I did it because I've made America great. We can do it again. Right now we are not a great country. We are not a great country. But I've gotten to know, because of this, evangelicals, I know so many people, and they feel so good about themselves and their family, and they base it on religion. I had never had that kind of an experience where I got to know so many. And Franklin Graham and Paula White. I know so many people that are so incredible, religious people, and not just Christians, not just evangelicals. When I look at the Catholic faith, you take a look at what the FBI, look at what the FBI is doing to Catholics. They've made them like the enemy. They've made them, it's horrible. How could a Catholic ever vote for a Democrat or a guy like Biden again after the experience that they're going through? But I've met some of the finest people that I wouldn't have had the privilege of meeting if I weren't president. And they're religious leaders, and they really are incredible people.
Yeah, if you caught that, if you were listening, he did reference Paula White, who's prosperity gospel, heretic, all of that stuff, but also Franklin Graham. Yes, I believe Donald Trump meant Franklin Graham. How? You could say, well, this is somebody that has really been a mentor, which I guess is what he was doing in that portion of that answer that didn't answer the question at all. He's not a mentor if you don't even know his name. And keep in mind, this is the son of Billy Graham, maybe the most famous evangelist and Christian in modern history. Graham. But regardless of that, you can see, if you were watching, you could see the disappointment on this lady's face. You could. And I'm going to tell you something else, and this may not make everybody happy, but if you're a believer, not only should you be able to see the disappointment on this woman's face, you should be able to feel the disappointment in the hearts of Christians around the country who believed this Trump is a baby Christian thing. Because I'm just going to be blunt with you. no one who has encountered the real Jesus is going to miss an opportunity like this. You're not going to do it. To point people to what really matters. If you found Jesus, then you know more than anything that happens on this earth, the most important thing is your eternal life with the Savior. And I will say that's a far more significant issue to me. Like, I want Trump to know Jesus. And I want him to know Jesus far more than I care anything about who is president. Whether he's president again or not. What I care far more about is that he knows Jesus. That is the far more significant issue to me. But going back to where I started all of this, there is a political observation to me after watching this that seems glaring, and that is this strategy of not going on to the debate stage with the other candidates. I don't think it's wise. I think it's a killer for Donald Trump. If you take away Trump's ability, his best quality or talent, which is bantering and bickering in a debate format, being the tough guy, the alpha on the stage, that's where Trump generated all the attention for himself in 2015, 2016. It's how he became the Republican nominee. And if Trump is willingly depriving himself of that oxygen, then whatever he's going to do to replace it has to be equally as good. This? No. Trump answering questions about his faith, Trump answering questions about economic policy or foreign policy, that isn't the way to do it. That's not Trump's strong suit. Here's the reality. Like it or not, debates anymore, they're not really debates. Ideas are not fully developed and shared. Okay, this isn't Lincoln Douglas stuff where they speak for hours. Debates anymore are very shallow. They are notoriously shallow. Town halls, like the one he did with Hannity, allow for a lot more depth. Donald Trump should stick with the former. He should stick with something that is much shallower. Because the deeper stuff, it's going to leave more and more people, in my estimation, it's going to leave more and more people looking like this woman did, who asked a question, tell me about your faith journey, and got, I'm glad I did this. I made America great, and I think we can do it again. What? So I don't think it's a wise strategy. You know what else I don't think is a wise strategy? Running down your country all the time. I truly don't get it. It's like I've been blessed to go and speak and do things in big cities. Like I've been to a lot of big cities in the United States, and I will forever be grateful for that experience and to be around people from cities and all of that stuff, especially coming from a small town. Now, we moved around when I was a kid because my dad was in the Air Force, but it's a lot different than when you're an adult. And being in a small town, it is a completely different feel when you go to a big city, and people from cities are different than people who are from rural Indiana. Okay, it's true. But what I will never understand, for the life of me, even if you prefer city living, people that run down, oh man, small country town, rural town, USA, oh, it's awful, it's terrible. No, it's not. It may not be your cup of tea, but it's not awful, it's not terrible. Look at you, it gave you a safe and healthy upbringing. And I know everybody has to shout their trauma these days, but I mean, you could do the same thing about cities. I'm sure there's plenty of people that move from the cities out into the country and are thankful for it. But I don't know, just people's incessant need to tell everybody how bad they had it just grates on me. It just gets old. Like I always want to say, if you're miserable in a small town, you may not be miserable in the city, but my guess is you still will be, because my guess is that the problem isn't the location. It's just not. The problem's you and your attitude. But nobody likes to hear that anymore. But it's the same phenomenon. I'm sure there are Norwegians out there that despise Norway. You can probably find some of them. And South Africans, who despise South Africa, and you can probably find Argentinians who despise Argentina. By the way, I should say this, since I've had a lot of former or foreign exchange students from countries in South America that have like dictators. Like I've had a couple from Venezuela, and they loathe the dictatorship in Venezuela, hated it, but they loved their country. That's why they hated the dictatorship. I'm not talking about people who object to the government. I mean, I object to the government of the United States and what they do a lot of the time. But it's still a great place to live. And I don't hate this country or focus on its negatives. So I'm not talking about people that criticize the government. Every culture, people are going to be upset with leaders and all of that stuff. That's human nature. I'm questioning, is there another society on the globe where you have a significant portion of the population that will make a living, will make a healthy living doing nothing other than publishing and shouting their hatred and their contempt for the complete ethos and history of their civilization? I just don't, I don't see it. The people, the chorus of critics that are constantly running down America. America's not great. America stinks. America's terrible. America's awful. And I've got some examples here, but we're running out of time. I don't need to go into the whole thing. I just think it's weird. I'll close with this. Sounds like I'm preaching a sermon, didn't it? I'll close with this. Now, we'll make this the last bit on this, but I had a foreign exchange student. There was something that happened this last week. Nicole Hannah-Jones, who writes for the New York Times, one of her old tweets surfaced where she was running down the country for dropping the atomic bomb on Japan. And I know that there's an academic debate, but she's just making stuff up about it. Well, we just dropped it because of the money that we'd spent on it. We had to make good on it. So even though Japan was going to surrender, man, woman, you don't know what you're talking about. But the New York Times pays her to write history takes. I mean, it's just crazy. That hating America, assuming the worst about our country, telling everybody that every impulse and every action the country's ever taken has been rooted in white supremacy and it's evil and it's hatred, man, I just don't understand. Foreign exchange student that I had from South America. I thought it was interesting, and we talked about this in the class that he was in. He took, when he was back home, he took a class in his own country's history. So let's say Argentina. He took Argentinian history, the history of Argentina, his country. He learned it. You know what else he learned? In their classes, part of their curriculum was a course on American history. They learned about our country as well, because the United States is so influential in the world as the world's lone superpower and this beacon of freedom. Because of the United States' influence, they believe their kids in that country should know something about the United States and what we were. I asked him, oh boy, what do the books say about us? Because you always hear these things about foreigners that don't like America and all of this. So what do the books teach about the United States? And I will never forget what he said. And he told me before that everybody was jealous of him getting to come to America, and they were excited and they thought that would be awesome and they wanted to know all about it. And he said to me, we think America is great. I had to come here to learn about all the reasons why it's not. And I don't think he worded it exactly like that, but that's what he was saying. And I get that no civilization is perfect. I obviously understand that. And American history, just like any other history, has blights and it has embarrassments. And we have faults, many of them. Power corrupts here just as much as it corrupts anywhere else. And vice and greed, they tempt here every bit as much as they do somewhere else. But why in the world is running down America, number one, so lucrative in this country? And number two, why is it such a favorite pastime? Like, why is it so appealing? I truly don't understand it. And I don't think it's a sustainable path to be on either. I just don't. I'm not talking about reviving good old-fashioned patriotism where we ignore our wrongs. No, the entire history of this country has been about pursuing what? A more perfect union. The understanding that we'll never be perfect, but we have the ability to pursue that, and that's what we should do. I think that's something we're celebrating and being pretty excited that you get to be a part of. I don't know. I'm just not into it. The constant bemoaning of circumstances. People just like to be a victim, I think. I really do. PeterHeck.com is the email address. PeterHeck.com. Christians, we don't live like victims. So if that's your mode of operation, snap out of it. You're more than conquerors. Jesus has already won. All right? Good. Just making sure you're aware. PeterHeck.com, the email address, or you can comment below. I'm always good with that. You can also click that link in the email, get over to CFD, Creative Financial Design. Let them know you appreciate what they do in supporting us and this ministry. I would appreciate it if you would do that. And appreciate it if you are back next week for more Memo Pod, and for the Bible teaching and all of it. All right? All right, I'll see you then.